That was probably one of the most tasteful death scenes I have seen in a very, very long time. The meaning of Biscuit's death, way different. Way different from Fumiton. Some might compare the two, but we can't really compare. Let me explain. Fumiton's death, the reason why she died is she wanted to protect Kudelia. And in a way, that's what Biscuit wanted to do. He wanted to protect Orga. But there's distinct differences. For one, the reason how Fumiton died was she felt like she was a traitor. She felt like she betrayed Kudelia. And then she offered up her life to protect the person she cared about. She knew she was going to die. And she died willingly. Biscuit, he tried to save Orga. He said let go and Orga fell out. And Biscuit took the hit head on. And while Biscuit was hurt and we saw a lot of blood and he was kind of crushed under his vehicle, in his mind and out in the open to Orga, he was just giving off this atmosphere of hope. Like, he's going to be fine. And this is where it comes down to being tasteful and very different from Fumiton. Because when you saw Fumiton's death scene, you knew she was dead. Like, she was going to die. And there's many ways to handle a death scene. Like, there's so many different ways to handle a death scene. And there's many ways to do it correctly and incorrectly. And I feel like this is the case to do a death scene correctly. Because the way Biscuit died, he believed he was going to live. Like, you saw his eyes, it looked like he was on death's door, and he was on death's door because, you know, he died. But in the entire scene, as a viewer, I actually believed for one moment that he was going to survive. I'm not even joking. I actually thought he was going to survive. Now, at first, I thought he was going to die. Like, let me explain my emotions. Pretty much, when the vehicle flipped, and you saw Orga get, you know, he, like, fell out, and he saw what happened to Biscuit, and you saw Biscuit like that, I thought Biscuit was dead. Like, I'm like, he's dead as fuck. Like, he's gonna die. He's a Sheeta Sensei. So, as Biscuit is pretty much dying, I'm like, well, this fucking sucks. And I was kind of sad, because, I mean, Biscuit's a cool character, but, I mean, the death flags have been wrapped around his character since, you know, last week's episode. We kind of all saw it coming a little bit. But then, as Biscuit started talking, and he started kind of conveying his emotions to us as the viewer, and then Orga and everybody else, and also talking about, you know, how his life was, or, you know, what he wants to do with Tekkadan, and then, you know, his little sisters and stuff, you start thinking in your mind, like, oh my god, he has all this hope, he's saying all this, you're like, he's going to survive. Like, I honestly, at that moment, I was middle fingered by this series. Like, the middle finger this series gave me at that moment was fucking huge. Because I've seen many series to where you know a character's gonna die, and you're like, the character's dead. Or you know when a character's gonna live, and you're like, okay, the character's gonna live, everything's gonna be fine, and usually the character's fine. I've seen many series, anime series, and literature, and all that does that type of shit. And so when I saw this scene, I'm like, okay, the way he's acting, it seems like he might live. And then all of a sudden, he just dies like that, and I'm like, you telling me you give all this hope? Like, he has this hope radiating out of his body, and then all of a sudden you kill him? Like what? And this goes down to a tasteful death scene. It was very tasteful because of the way it was executed. It made it to where the viewers thought he died, and then realized, like, wait, he's not gonna die, and then takes it away. It's like this, like, giving a person hope. Like, you know, this person or someone, you know, is about to get killed by a soldier. And then the person that's about to get killed gets told by the soldier that's about to kill him, like, hey, you could go. Opens the door for him. Kind of like Fate Zero. Let's think about Fate Zero for a little bit. You remember Fate Zero, what happened with Castor and what he did to the little boy? You remember that? At the beginning of the series, like the first episode, you know, Castor opened the door, and he's like, here you go, for the little boy. And then he talked about how hope, he likes building up the hope before taking it away. That's kind of what Sunrise just did in this episode of Gundam. They took away our fucking hope. Like, oh yeah, Biscuit's gonna survive, and then they just yank it away and drag us back into the room, and you're like, fuck you. Like, fuck you, Sunrise. Like, really? Now, just because I say that doesn't mean this episode is bad. It was a fucking great episode. One of the best episodes. You know what? I want to say this is the best episode yet of the series. Yeah, best episode yet of Iron Blood Orphan. So, besides the death scene overall, I think this is the first episode in a very, 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 very long time that actually focused on ground battle. Like, majority of the fights we've seen in recent episodes, or the entirety of Gundam, has been space battles. Think about that. I mean, yes, we've had some ground battles in the last arc, but it wasn't with mechs. Like, you didn't really see mechs going around fighting. And I think this is actually the first battle we've seen on, like, land since the beginning of the series, before, you know, Tekkadan, you know, moved out into space stuff with, you know, Kudelia. I think this is actually the first time we've seen a really colossal battle like this, and it made me really appreciate, you know, this episode, because it had a very different atmosphere to it than previous fights have been. So that was completely different from the normal, you know, atmosphere that space battles give. It was a ground battle, and seeing, you know, Tekkadan fight on the ground, all this tactics and strategy, and see how they were outwitting, you know, everybody. They put up explosives on the house that they were staying at, and then they also, you know, they were fighting hand-to-hand combat along with, you know, fighting ships, like battleships. It was a different type of perspective and way to view this episode of Gundam, and it allowed me also to just enjoy it so much more, because it wasn't the same old, like, oh, they're going in, they're fighting in space, you know, you're gonna see mechs beat the shit out of each other in space around asteroids and stuff, and that's pretty much it. It was completely different, which I feel like made this episode a lot better, because you had this death scene alongside of something that was very different that we haven't seen for a while, and it just made the episode mesh so well. It had this epic action, this great battle going on, and I mean, getting to see how that final scene was done, it just adds for a tasteful ending. So yeah, this week's episode of Gundam, probably one of the best. I cannot wait to see what's going to happen next. I feel so bad for Orga losing the person he cared about, and, you know, they didn't get to talk. I mean, also seeing, you know, Mika, how he was freaking out. Like, you could see Mika, he was really upset. Like, oh my god, he straight up was, you could see it in his face how upset he was. And that was, like, the first time we really saw his face look like that. And so seeing that, I wonder how his mental, you know, state's gonna be after, you know, we see this, you know, little fight end. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.